Tonight I'd like to discuss a little bit about the work that I've been making since the mural. I really hate keeping track of time in segments and like how much time has elapsed because it makes me nervous about not hitting the right milestones and things, but this was thrust upon me, and I'm glad. I really thank Barbara and Gordy's for not only making me acknowledge how much time has passed, but making me both reckon with and appreciate how much I've grown and what I've accomplished since the mural. So my newish work has been with this yarn and glue. And it has, the rest of all this has been made since completing the mural in general. Right as the pandemic set in, the very last thing that I did out in public was go to a workshop put on by Ply Space at Cornerstone, and the young man teaching that workshop did a variation of this technique with the yarn. And I almost didn't go. It was during that time where we were all like, should I go to the store? Should I bleach my Doritos? Like, what am I doing? And I mean like right at the beginning, because the next day, everything shut down. So I'm so glad that I made the decision to go. And real quick, I want to recognize Erin and her work with Ply Space. Like, that was, that was my anchoring event before. That, and I went to like a weird basement show on campus that I was way too old to be at. Those two things were like the last two things I did, and I'm so glad that I did both of them. Thank you, Erin. So anyhow, I was instantly taken with this process and the texture and the colors and the possibilities that it contained, but I didn't really come back to it until recently, because honestly, during all of this, I mean, we're not out of it, but you know what I mean, like, there wasn't anyone that says like, oh, the pandemic's gonna make so many good artworks and artists and stuff. Like, no, like, trauma does not create good art. Some artists do create art based on trauma, but it was a struggle, you know, to make anything. The way I dealt with that during the pandemic was by bullying people to join my cyber art club, which was just me on Zoom doing art things. That was really fun. That's going to start back up, and I'm going to bully you all. Making people watch weird DJ sets. That was just me playing songs and kind of crying a little bit on webcam. I had trouble finishing the piece in class or in the workshop, and that's always been a problem with me, because finishing something and focusing on one thing, I always make it very complicated and get overwhelmed by possibility, which can be nice if you're in a really good place. You're like, oh, I can do so much. But it's a hindrance, and it's something I've lived with all my life, and I've always seen it as a moral and intellectual failing. Oh no, don't, okay. I had just enough wine that I might cry. Okay. A moral and intellectual failing. Anyhow, blah, 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 yada, yada. But as the world got scarier and crazier during the pandemic, like I said, I had even more difficulty doing creative work. On the days where I could drag myself from the bottom part of my house to the top part of my house, where I was blessed to have a wonderful studio space, enough room, all the supplies I could ask for. You know, good old Daddy Biden sent me a check, and I spent most of it at Art Mart. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and I was so glad, but like, I just couldn't focus on one thing, so I was like, you can't leave this room until you do one small thing. And I had these silly little leather samples that I had squirreled away. I really love found materials. They make me feel like it's less of a threat to use them, because if I mess it up, it's something that someone threw away anyways. So there are 20 little paintings from 2020, and I love, this is framed at Gordy's. It's one of the only pieces I've ever been like, I have to get this framed because I want to preserve it. This was my, experience of 2020, lots of downs, but I also tried to mark the happiness, the pleasures, constant coffee, my beautiful husband. I painted another window mural, which you can still see at Muncie Mapco. It's a little ragged now. They should really take it down, but you can still see the gist of it. But that's here. My love of Halloween, my love of LaCroix. And every time I finish one of these like little paintings, I got that little hit of serotonin that you get from actually accomplishing something. And eventually I was like, oh my gosh, I must have 20. This will be 20 little paintings from 2020. And I realized that I created a body of work by just pushing myself little bits. No 0 days is what I push for. If I could even just get the dishes done and paint a Grim Reaper. Let's see here. Another thing that happened during the pandemic time was I watched an episode of Star Trek where Janeway figures out where her family's from, and then she goes back to Bloomington, and I'd seen it before, but it hit me in a different way. And I had a DNA test in my house that a friend had given me because I famously did not know who my dad was. And I never really cared that much, which is another reason that I didn't really take it. This test was 2 years old, but I was like, Janeway she got a lot out of that. So I took it and submitted it, and it came back. I found a biological brother that never met. He had no idea I existed, and our biological father. I'm still not used to saying stuff. It's weird. It's weird. That's why we're here. That's why there's a weird yarn thing of him on the wall. We worked it out, and we were like, yeah, he liked to party. My mom liked to party. They were partying at the same place, so we think it was a one night stand thing. And he sent me a couple of just terrible pictures, blurry pictures that he took with a potato cell phone. And I just really wanted to find a way to filter my looking at him and figuring out how he looked and how I looked and blah, 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 in a way that felt safe. And I was like, I'm gonna make him out of yarn. That'll be fun. And it was. I didn't make this up. He was wearing this outfit, a purple blazer and a plum turtleneck. His hair was actually darker, but at the time I didn't have a darker brown, and it was the pandemic, so you don't go to Michael's for your health. So I made that, and this picture was taken in 1988. And there was another picture I had of myself, this giant school picture. They used to make school pictures of kids that were this big, and it was just their big face. And I couldn't throw my sweet little face away, but I was like, what do I do with this? So I just did a yarn thing on top of it. And I realized that both of these pictures were from 1988. And when I happened to plop them down next to my sleeping dog in my studio, that's what, I took a picture, I was like, oh, look at this family. I was like, holy shit, that's weird. And my husband walked in and was like, you're working some stuff out, huh? I guess so. So that's when this went from a bizarre art project where I use this chunky yarn, so he kind of looks like a burn victim. But it became more meaningful, and I think that every single piece of art that someone makes with intention is a self-portrait of something inside themselves. And I realized all of a sudden that that was important, and I gave importance to it. And so, that was cool. Okay, let me check my time. Oh crap, I'm surpassing Faith. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up. The last thing. If that's my bell, just give me one more second. So this body of work, it's all disparate. Like, there is this yarn stuff that I stuck with, but there's so many different things. There's like a weird piece of wood that I got out of the White River. There's a collage. There's some, embroidery. And I used to also look at the fact that I couldn't stick with one thing as a moral failing. Honestly, like, I'd wake up every day and be like, you'd be successful. You'd be able to do more if you could just focus up on something. But I recently was diagnosed, oh my gosh, and I still, like, I fight constantly against the beating myself up, but like, a head shrinker was like, you have ADHD, and I was like, no, that's wild. And he was like, let me give you some medicine for it and start trying these things. And all of a sudden, so many things made sense. And I've been able to start, like, not beating myself up for not sticking with one thing. I explained to him my problems as an artist and as a creative professional in lots of ways, DJing and graphic design. It's like, I can't face this stuff. Sometimes I just, like, won't get out of bed because I just can't, there's too much. And he's like, yo, try this and, like, take these pills, it's cool. I was like, no way. Turns out he's right, I guess. He's a doctor. And so this is me celebrating and acknowledging and being stoked that I can work with my brain and not think of it as a moral failing that I'm not able to concentrate on one thing.